On nights when the full moon ascended in all its silvery majesty, the ancient village of Harrow's End would fall silent, except for the whispered legends that danced on the wind. It was said that when the moon shone completely, it served as a sign, a silent signal guiding those destined to unravel its mystery. And on one such fateful night, when the moon was perfectly round and radiant, an ominous secret stirred in the dark corners of the land, setting in motion events that would forever scar the hearts of those involved. I remember the tale like it was whispered to me in a hushed tone by an old storyteller who had seen too many horrors to ever be unscathed by them. It began in a time when Harrow's End was little more than a forgotten outpost, where superstitions held more power than modern science, and every rustle in the wind carried the weight of an ancient curse. The village lay nestled in a valley surrounded by thick forests and rugged hills, a place where nature still held dominion over man, and where secrets were buried deep beneath layers of time and soil. For generations, the villagers had spoken of a mysterious event that occurred only under the full moon, a subtle shift in the night air, a fleeting glimmer in the darkness that pointed the way to a terrible fate. They believed that the moon, in its fullness, was a silent herald of death and retribution, guiding lost souls toward their destiny. It was not merely a celestial body in the sky. It was an oracle, an inscrutable messenger delivering cryptic signals to those who dared to seek the truth behind the veil of mortal existence. It was during one such full moon that an unusual occurrence began to unravel the fabric of Harrow's End's carefully maintained normalcy. A series of gruesome murders had plagued the village for weeks, a series of killings so elaborate and chilling that even the hardiest hearts trembled at the thought. The victims, all found with strange symbols carved into their skin, bore no obvious connection to one another. Yet, as the body count increased, so too did the terror that gripped every soul. Rumors spread like wildfire, and every eye in the village turned skyward, as if hoping that the moon's silent signal might reveal the culprit behind these heinous acts. Among the villagers was a man named Everett Mallory, a reclusive scholar known for his arcane knowledge of folklore and the occult. Everett had long been an outcast, preferring the company of ancient tomes to that of the common folk, who often dismissed his research as the ramblings of a madman. Yet, as the full moon rose high and bathed the land in its eerie glow, Everett felt a stirring within him, a pull toward the unknown that he had studied his entire life. Convinced that the murders were connected to the age-old legends, he resolved to uncover the truth. His research led him deep into the history of the village, into dusty manuscripts and secret archives that had been hidden away from prying eyes for centuries. Everett discovered that Harrow's End was built upon the ruins of an ancient civilization, a people whose beliefs were as enigmatic as the symbols they left behind. Their lore spoke of a moon's silent signal, a phenomenon wherein the full moon's light would reveal a hidden pathway, one that led to an altar where sacrifices were once made to appease the gods of darkness. According to the myth, the altar held a terrible power. It was said to be a gateway between the living world and a realm of unspeakable horror, a realm where vengeful spirits and forgotten deities roamed free. The villagers had long since abandoned these rites, but it appeared that some dark force had reawakened the ancient power, using the full moon as its beacon. Driven by an obsession that bordered on madness, Everett set out one night armed with nothing but his knowledge, a flickering lantern, and a determination to unmask the evil that had claimed so many lives. He trudged through winding paths and shadowed woods, following the subtle hints left by the alignment of ancient symbols etched on weathered stones. The deeper he ventured into the forest, the more he felt the oppressive weight of history bearing down upon him, a suffocating presence that seemed to whisper warnings from the past. As Everett reached a clearing in the heart of the forest, the moon's light revealed a sight that chilled him to the very core. There, standing before a crumbling stone structure overgrown with ivy and moss, was the long-forgotten altar of the ancients. The air around it shimmered with an almost tangible malevolence, and faint echoes of incantations seemed to vibrate through the night. It was here that the full moon cast its silent signal, a beam of ethereal light that illuminated a narrow path leading from the altar deeper into the forest. With each step along that path, Everett felt as though he was being drawn inexorably toward a destiny written in blood and shadow. In the days that followed, the murders grew ever more sinister. Each new victim was found not far from the forest's edge, their bodies arranged in a macabre tableau that seemed to mimic an ancient ritual. The villagers were gripped by fear and suspicion. Some whispered that the killings were the work of a curse reawakened by the desecration of the old ways, while others believed that a cult had risen from the ashes of antiquity to reclaim its lost power. In hushed conversations by flickering candlelight, they debated the true nature of the moon's silent signal, each interpretation more terrifying than the last. Everett's investigations brought him into contact with a motley group of individuals, each with their own ties to the ancient lore of Harrow's End. There was Lila, a determined young woman whose family had been among the first to settle in the village. Her ancestors had once been the guardians of the old secrets, sworn to protect the balance between light and darkness. Then there was Inspector Graham, a skeptical but dedicated officer from the nearby town, whose rational mind was challenged by the inexplicable nature of the murders. And finally, there was Father Benedict, a priest who had long battled his own inner demons and who saw in these events a dire warning of spiritual decay. Though each of them had their doubts, they joined forces with Everett, pooling their knowledge and courage in an attempt to decipher the cryptic clues left behind by the unseen hand orchestrating the horrors. Their investigations led them to the fringes of reason, to whispered legends of haunted ruins and cursed bloodlines, and to encounters with entities that defied explanation. Every night, as the full moon reached its zenith, the group would reconvene at the altar, hoping that its silent signal would reveal another piece of the puzzle. With trembling hands, they deciphered ancient inscriptions and attempted to reconstruct the lost rituals of the ancients, a task that was as dangerous as it was enigmatic. One fateful evening, as the full moon cast its unyielding glow upon the land, a breakthrough came in the form of a tattered journal recovered from the ruins of an old manor on the outskirts of the village. The journal belonged to a long-departed mystic whose writings had been dismissed as mere superstition by his contemporaries. Yet, within its fragile pages lay a chilling account of a similar phenomenon, a time when the moon's fullness signaled not only the approach of death, but also the emergence of a malevolent force that sought to reclaim the souls of the living. The mystic had written of a ritual, lost to the passage of centuries, that could either seal the gateway forever or unleash a terror beyond mortal comprehension. As the group pored over the journal, the implications of its contents began to take shape. The murders were not random acts of violence. They were part of a deliberate, ancient plan, a ritual designed to awaken something that had long slumbered beneath the earth. Each victim, it seemed, was a sacrificial offering, their blood meant to reforge a connection between the world of the living and that of the dead. The journal hinted that the full moon was the key, its light activating a hidden mechanism that would open the gateway and unleash the horror that lay beyond. The group realized that time was running out. If the next full moon arrived without them having found a way to halt the ritual, Harrow's End, and perhaps the world, would be plunged into a darkness from which there might be no escape. Fear and determination warred within each of them as they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. Everett, whose scholarly pursuits had now become a desperate crusade against an ancient evil, led the group deeper into the labyrinthine forest. Their journey was fraught with perils both natural and supernatural, unseen forces that tugged at their sanity, whispers carried on the wind that seemed to speak of unspeakable truths, and shadows that moved with a life of their own. Every step was a test of resolve. Every rustle of leaves a reminder of the omnipresent threat that lurked in the darkness. On the eve of the next full moon, the atmosphere grew charged with an almost tangible dread. The group gathered at the altar one final time, their faces etched with resolve and their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and hope. Lila's eyes shone with fierce determination as she recited incantations learned from her ancestors, her voice a beacon of defiance against the oppressive darkness. Inspector Graham, though still steeped in skepticism, clutched his service revolver as though it could somehow fend off the unknown, while Father Benedict muttered prayers beneath his breath, seeking divine intervention in the face of mortal terror. As midnight approached and the full moon ascended to its zenith, the altar began to hum with an eerie, otherworldly resonance. The stone structure pulsed with an ancient energy, and the air was alive with a vibration that resonated deep within the bones of every living creature present. In that moment, the silent signal of the full moon transformed into a deafening proclamation, a harbinger of the ritual's culmination. The ground beneath their feet trembled as an unseen force stirred, and the narrow path that had once led from the altar to the heart of the forest widened into a gateway lined with spectral lights. The group exchanged terrified glances, knowing that the final act of this dark drama was about to unfold. Everett stepped forward, holding aloft a relic uncovered from his extensive research, a medallion inscribed with the symbols of the ancients, believed to be the key to either sealing the gateway or unleashing the horror. The medallion vibrated in his hand as though it had a life of its own, resonating with the energy of the full moon. At that moment, a presence manifested, a towering, shadowy figure that seemed to be woven from the very essence of nightmares. Its eyes glowed with a baleful light, and its voice, when it spoke, was a cacophony of ancient despair and wrath. "You have disturbed the balance," the figure intoned, its voice echoing across the clearing like a chorus of tormented souls. "The time has come for reckoning." For a heartbeat, time itself seemed to pause, and every soul in Harrow's felt the weight of destiny pressing upon them. In that breathless pause, the group realized that the figure was the embodiment of the ancient evil they had sought to thwart, the guardian of the gateway between worlds. It had been waiting, as patient as the night, for the moment when mortal ambition would dare challenge the laws of existence. Everett's voice trembled as he spoke. "We will not let you tear apart the fabric of our world. The sacrifices of the past were meant to seal your power, not to free it anew." His words, imbued with the desperate hope of one who has seen too much loss, hung in the air as the medallion flared with a brilliant light. A cataclysmic struggle ensued, one that defied mortal description. The clearing became a battleground between light and shadow. Lila, Inspector Graham, Father Benedict, and Everett, united by a common cause, invoked the long-forgotten rites with all their heart. The spectral lights swirled around them, coalescing into shapes that danced between the realms of the living and the dead. The earth quaked, and the very heavens seemed to shudder as the full moon bore witness to this epic clash of forces. Time became fluid as memories of ancient battles and modern fears intermingled. The medallion, glowing brighter than the moon itself, acted as a beacon of hope in that maelstrom of chaos. Every incantation uttered by Lila was answered by a thunderous rumble in the distance. Every prayer offered by Father Benedict was met with the flickering of celestial fire. The guardian roared in defiance, its voice reverberating through the ages as it unleashed torrents of malevolent energy. In that moment, the fate of Harrow's end, and perhaps the world, hung precariously in the balance. The confrontation reached its zenith as the guardian, battered by the combined force of mortal resolve and ancient incantations, faltered. The medallion's light intensified until it shone with such brilliance that it seemed to pierce the veil of darkness itself. With a final, agonizing cry, the guardian dissipated into a swirl of shadow and dust, its malignant presence banished back into the void from which it had emerged. The spectral gateway shuddered and then slowly closed, the vibrant lights fading into the calm of the night as if they had never been. In the heavy silence that followed, the full moon stood as a solitary sentinel in the sky, a silent witness to the victory and to the lingering scars of a battle fought on the edge of human comprehension. The group, exhausted but resolute, fell to their knees before the altar, each of them acutely aware that the price of this fragile peace was etched into the very fabric of their souls. In the days and months that followed, the villagers of Harrow's Inn began to rebuild their shattered lives. The murders, which had once cast a pall over the land, gradually faded into the realm of whispered legends and cautionary tales. Yet, on every full moon, there remained a palpable hush, a moment of remembrance for the night when ancient evils clashed with mortal courage, and when the moon itself had served as the silent herald of a destiny written in the stars. Everett, Lila, Inspector Graham, and Father Benedict went their separate ways, forever changed by the events that had transpired. Everett returned to his studies, his research now imbued with the hard-won wisdom of experience. Lila became a keeper of the old lore, vowing to preserve the fragile balance between light and dark. Inspector Graham, though forever skeptical of the supernatural, carried with him a quiet respect for the mysteries that lay beyond human understanding. And Father Benedict continued his spiritual mission, a living reminder that hope and redemption could be found even in the darkest of times. But the legend of the moon's silent signal endured, an eternal echo that reminded the people of Harrow's Inn that some mysteries are etched into the very marrow of the earth, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. And on nights when the full moon graced the heavens, those who looked up would remember the terror, the sacrifice, and the bittersweet victory of that fateful encounter. A story passed down through generations as a reminder that even in the presence of unspeakable horror, the light of hope can guide us through the darkest night.